Let's talk about burnout. If you are an entrepreneur, or if you have a full-time job, or two full-time jobs, or one or two full-time jobs and a side hustle, and maybe throw in a few children in there, or all of the above, then you're probably really going to relate to what I'm talking about today. It's been a really stressful year for a lot of people, and I've definitely experienced my fair share of chronic stress over the past year. Much of it has to do with having a new baby in the house, trying to balance that with keeping my business going, the household, the 4-year-old, and essentially having next to no time for myself or any amount of self-care. So basically what's happened over the past year is I have just completely allowed myself to completely burn out. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about a little bit of what got me to this place of burnout and also what's been helping me come out of it over the last few weeks, because I'm very happy to say that over the last couple of weeks, I have rounded a corner. Things are looking up. I'm starting to get some energy back. But yeah, I know a lot of you can relate to this burnt out feeling. So just want to share what's been working for me as a busy entrepreneur slash mother slash household manager slash, well, you know how it is. We are all wearing a dozen hats or more. So if that sounds familiar, and if you're in a similar place that I'm at, please stick around and we'll talk about this together. My name is Rachel Harrison Sund, and I help people to create and sell journals, planners, notebooks, and more on the Kindle Direct Publishing platform. If this sounds like something you're interested in, then please do subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when I put one of these videos out, which is each and every Monday. Okay, so how did I get here in the first place? Step one, give birth during a pandemic. It didn't feel super hard at first, but as you can imagine, and I know there's a couple more of you out there that gave birth over the past year and can totally relate to this, there was just nowhere to go and nothing to do. So for me personally, I found it incredibly isolating. On top of that, we didn't have any family members that were in our bubble, so we had pretty much next to no help for most of the past year. Now that was pretty difficult, trying to balance having that new baby in the house while also, we've got a 4-year-old as well, an almost 4-year-old, and I'm trying to run a business here. And I'm not at a 9-to-5 job where I've got a maternity leave per se. I did plan things out, so I was able to take off a couple of months. But really, I couldn't just let things go. Like, I had stuff to maintain, and I had to speak to people, and I had to keep things going, which I found really difficult. Oh, and I was also breastfeeding every 2 hours still as well. So basically my day would just be, I would wake up in the morning, usually to a screaming baby. And then I would just be with my son, which was great, by the way. He is so awesome. But it's tiring when you're with a baby all day and then, you put him down for a nap. Then I'm running into my office here and I'm pounding out some work, and then I'm doing that right up into the last second until he starts crying for me to come and get him. So I'm doing that a couple of times a day between the napping and him being awake. And then of course my daughter comes home, and then it's dinner, and then it's bath time, and then it's bedtime. And by the time that's all done, you've got maybe an hour at the end of the day where you just kind of collapse on the couch, throw on Netflix or something like that. And then you do it all over again the next day, and that's after getting not much sleep. Now I am pretty fortunate. Both my children are good sleepers. My son Alden, it took him a little while to get to that point. So for the first 6 months, it was just zero sleep. And, even actually after he started sleeping, I couldn't sleep for some reason, which was doubly tragic because, both kids are sleeping through the night, but I can't get a good night's sleep still. So, this goes on for weeks and months, and it's not easy. There's no time for self-care. I've talked about this a couple of times in other videos where for me, I really need to have my little walk after lunch and my little, 15-minute meditation after work. None of that stuff was happening. And I could just start feeling that familiar feeling of burnout creeping in. So for me, I start getting really negative. The negativity just starts creeping in. I'm irritable. I'm biting people's heads off. I'm snapping at my daughter. I'm biting my husband's head off. I'm just tired all the time. And not like tired, that bone weary feeling where you just feel like your life force has just been drained out of you. I was feeling like that. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't concentrate. I felt like I could barely even string two sentences together. I remember trying to read a book and it was like I couldn't get past one sentence. I would have to read one sentence over and over and over. Like I wasn't absorbing it. I wasn't comprehending what I was reading. It worried me so much. I called my doctor over it and I was like, what's going on here? I feel like I've lost like at least 10 to 20 IQ points. I was eating and drinking more than I normally would. This is another telltale sign. If you just start feeling super drained, unhappy, and then you're trying to like fill a void or get some excitement or, again, this is during a pandemic. You can't exactly go out and do anything. So, it's 10 o'clock at night. I need a little dopamine hit and I'm, standing in my pantry, scouring the shelves for something to eat. Or I'm pouring myself a second glass of wine. So those were some of my symptoms. The biggest tip-offs for me is really just getting into that place of negativity and the extreme exhaustion and just feeling like overwhelmed from normal daily tasks. I'm talking like cooking dinner was like a monumental feat. I just didn't even know how I was going to do that. So that, at best should be an annoyance. Or something that you totally enjoy doing. But for me, it was like, oh my God, I haven't thought about dinner. What am I going to do? I just felt completely overwhelmed with even just the smallest task. So that's how I knew that I was starting to feel really, really burnt out. So once it kind of hit me like, okay, I am in this place of burnout. What do I do now? So I'll just kind of take you through a few of the things that I've been doing over the past few weeks, which have really helped to put me back on the right path. They're just little things, but I've just found in life in general, it's oftentimes the really little things that make the biggest difference in our lives. So let's go ahead and look at what some of those are. Okay, so firstly, I think it's really important to just accept and evaluate. So really accept what your current situation is and circumstances are and evaluate what your options are. So for me, I had just had a baby. I had another child. I've got this business that I'm doing and there are certain aspects that I need to maintain, but can I really accomplish these big goals that I've set out for myself to do? I don't know what I was thinking. I had these goals and they require a lot of time and effort. And it's like, what are you thinking, Rachel? You've just given birth. Give yourself a little bit of time. So, if you are in a season where there's just a lot going on, give yourself some grace, okay? Put your goal on the back burner for a little while if you have to. Or at the very least, just relax your expectations. I was just expecting way too much of myself. And then when I inevitably couldn't get done in a day what I wanted to, because, Alden was supposed to sleep for 3 hours and he only slept for 1 or whatever, I would get so frustrated. Now, I could have saved myself all that frustration just by accepting the fact, and this sounds so ridiculously simple, that, hey, you've got a baby. The baby isn't going to nap according to your work schedule. He's going to wake up at varying times. If I would have just accepted that and just told myself okay, this goal is not going anywhere. You may not get it done on the date that you wanted to get it done, but it is going to get done eventually. Just keep making incremental progress. If I just would have kept reminding myself of that on a daily basis, I wouldn't have become so frustrated and upset when, I decided I want to do X, Y, Z this week and I barely even got X done. And now I'm feeling down on myself and, oh, you should have been able to do this. And it's just not realistic. So I had to accept what my situation is and or was at the time and just evaluate my options. And my options really were keep going as is and, collapse from exhaustion, which I practically did, or just take a step back and, give myself a little bit of grace. So that's the first thing I would recommend. The second thing is to make a human connection. The pandemic has been really isolating, and any of you with children out there, even if you've given birth outside of a pandemic, it can be isolating when you're at home. So keeping those human connections are really important. You want to maintain that connection with your partner if you have one. If you don't have a partner, or even if you do, maintain that connection with a friend or a family member, someone. Pick up the phone, try to get off the, don't text. I mean, texting's fine if you really don't like talking on the phone, but I just remember it was so great to have an actual conversation with someone on the telephone. It just lifted my spirits so much. Human connection is super important. It really goes a long way toward our well-being. So that would be my second tip, is to just get connected again with another human being, preferably another adult human being who you have some similar interests with. The third thing is get help. Get as much outside help as you can. So this might look like a few different things depending on who's available, and what your means will allow. But if there's stuff around the house you need help with, ask someone. Whether it's a spouse, whether it's an older child, if you've got a sister or a brother or like grandparents, whatever. If you have things that you could just really benefit from a little bit of help, get the help. Ask. This might also look like outsourcing if you have the means and you don't have any immediate family you can rely on. But if you do have the means to delegate some of your daily duties to some outside help, do that. So one of the things that I did was, after a while, like I said, I just couldn't wrap my head around even doing dinner. So I got online and I was just ordering in meals. It was just cheaper and healthier than just ordering from a restaurant every day, because that's what we were starting to do. It was like I was either just on skip the dishes, ordering from a restaurant, or it was like, frozen pizza night number 12. That's not sustainable health-wise or financially. So I just decided, okay, dinner's a struggle for me right now. I'm just gonna get some meals delivered. So that's what I did. But it doesn't just have to look like outside help either. You can, like I mentioned earlier, I called my doctor. I called my therapist. So I made an appointment with my therapist. I've had several sessions over the past few weeks that were really, really helpful, just to be able to get stuff off of my chest and out of my head, and just have it reflected back to me. Very, very helpful. My family doctor, it was like, is this just, I've got another kid now and I'm just tired? Like, is that what this is, or something else going on? Because like I mentioned at the top, like, I felt like I could no longer even comprehend information that I was receiving, whether it was like having a conversation and 2/3 of my vocabulary seemed to have just vanished, or, reading comprehension. Like, I actually felt worried about it. And I know some of that does happen when you have children, but this just felt like, okay, this can't be normal. So I called my doctor, and I had some blood work done, and that all came back totally fine. And with the sleeping thing, I had a sleeping assessment done in the home. This coming Monday, I have to go spend the night in a sleep clinic to see if they can figure out what's going on there, and hopefully I can get some good night's sleep again. So anything you can think of, any outside resources that you can turn to for help, do so. We never have to do these things alone, so get the help that you can get. Okay, the next tip is to just lower the bar. For so many of us, we are trying to operate up here all the time, and we never allow ourselves to just drop the bar just a couple of inches for even 5 seconds. And, that kind of goes back to the first tip, which is just accepting where you are right now. You may not be able to operate at 110% right now, and that's totally okay. So a big part of this is we need to stop comparing ourselves to others. Compare and despair. Most of us do it. For me, in this online business space, and you all know what I'm talking about, there's a lot of hustle culture in this online business space. And we see all these people just like killing it all the time. For me, there's a couple of online business mentors that I have that have either recently had children or, basically recently had children. And I'm just seeing them like continue to produce at optimal levels while they've got babies in the home. So you look at that and you think, well, if that person can do it, surely I should be able to do it. And if I can't, then that's, represents some failure on my part. Like I didn't plan properly for this, or, maybe I just don't have what it takes and they do. And this is crap, okay? In my case here, a couple of these people, I've since heard them talk about how, one of them had a night nurse all night long. So, once they went to bed at 10 or whatever, there was a nurse on duty throughout the night, taking care of the baby if the baby got up. That makes a giant difference, okay? We're not all in that position. So the point here is, just don't compare yourself to where others are in their journey. You don't know what particular advantages they have. And, the same goes for me. I'm in a position now where I've got certain advantages that I wouldn't have had several years ago, with my first baby. And one of those examples is I'm able to just hire someone to bring me meals on a weekly basis now. Like that's a pretty big advantage that other people might not have. So it's never a good idea to compare and despair. I think we could all, dare to be average, at least for a little while we've got all these other things going on. So that's it right there. Dare to be average. Okay, the next thing is to restore your mental and physical equilibrium. So I think most of us, when we start to get to that place of burnout, we just feel really out of balance, super out of whack. So this tip is all about doing what we can to restore balance mentally and physically. So for me, I get really into a negative headspace. I can start to feel that depression creeping in. So there's stuff that we can do to kind of reverse that, because if we allow that to keep going on, those negative thoughts and our interpretations of those negative thoughts, that creates stress in the body. And then you're, secreting stress hormones and your physiology is changing, and, you can feel all of that in your body. It's no longer just up here in your headspace. You can feel it in your body as well. And for some of us, for me, that can lead to heightened anxiety. Now, I'm someone who has kind of always had to deal with anxiety, and I could feel all of my anxiety rushing in again, and I was starting to have panic attacks again. I think I might have mentioned this in another video. I had a panic attack in the car while driving. Like I was going to pick up my daughter from daycare, and I had a crazy panic attack, what felt like completely out of nowhere while I was driving. It was absolutely terrifying. And it was extremely difficult for me to drive after that for probably a good couple months. This is a whole other story if you want to hear about how I went from having that panic attack in my car and then like avoiding driving for 2 months, and finally, I'm back to normal now behind the wheel. If anyone wants to hear about that, let me know and I'll tell you all about that. Very scary. But this is just where my bodily physiology was. So I had to kind of attack this from two fronts. I had to be extremely aware of the thoughts that were going through my head and talk back to them. And I do that through cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, which I did a video all about months ago, maybe even last year, which you can check out here. So I was doing that to try and reframe my negative headspace. And then for my physiology, I was trying to get back to that place of calm. So instead of being in that constant fight or flight feeling that the anxiety creates, or maybe it's the other way around, but either way, they're connected, obviously. I had to try and stimulate the calming response. So I did that through diaphragmatic breathing. So basically that is just belly breathing. And you can look up all about how to do that. This is actually one of the biggest game changers for me in dealing with my anxiety, and specifically short-circuiting my anxiety so that it wouldn't get to a level where I was actually going to have a panic attack. This was a game changer. This was basically the thing that helped me get back behind the wheel again after having a panic attack while driving. Most of us shallow breathe in our chests, and I think this is especially true for a lot of women, maybe women who, especially women who've just given birth. Like, I hadn't really noticed it, but I was just constantly sucking in my belly all the time, just subconsciously. I think after you've given birth, you're trying to get things back to where they were. So that's what I was doing. But because of that, I wasn't breathing in my belly. I was breathing in here. And when you have short, shallow breaths, that really triggers the stress response and that fight or flight response. So I wanted to combat that. So I was doing the deep breathing every single day for 10 minutes through my belly. And that really, really was a game changer. So I believe, and if anyone needs to correct me, please go ahead. I believe what that does is it stimulates the vagus nerve that runs up to your brain and basically stimulates a calming response. So I'm sure there's people out there that know more about that than I do, so please go ahead and chime in if you want to. So there's that, and then of course there's things like diet, making sure that you're getting the right foods. I was eating a lot of junk. So I started doing my green smoothies again every day. I cut out caffeine because caffeine was just aggravating my anxiety and giving me panic attacks. So I've since been able to just kind of work my way back up to 1 or 2 cups of tea a day. But I completely cut out coffee and I just didn't have any caffeine at all for a couple of weeks while I was just resetting my body. Gentle exercise. So I was taking, like a 30-minute walk. I still am trying to get like a 30-40 minute walk in on a daily basis. Not quite ready yet to go hard on the exercise. I'm trying to just ease back into it. So that nice little 40-minute walk after lunch every day, great. I've got my meditation, like I've mentioned before, after work for about 15 minutes. That is excellent. Those are all things that I'm doing to help me regain that equilibrium for my mind and my body. The final tip I have is to just try and restore your routines. And if you don't have any routines, then I think it's a good idea to create some. Having routines on a daily basis really does help to reduce stress. If you know exactly what you're going to be doing at the same time and in the same order, this just takes a little bit less mental energy than it would if every day is just like a question mark and you don't reliably know what the next thing coming is. So this is just a little thing that I think makes a huge, huge difference. So for me, I get the kids out of bed, I get them out the door, and then I start with my gratitude practice. And then I've got my little workday startup routine that I do. And I know I talked about it in another video. I can't remember which one right now, but I do everything in the same order. So I've got my gratitude practice, then I'm checking my calendar, then I'm reviewing my goals, then I'm doing my emails. There's about 5 or 6 things that I just do in a certain order. And it just helps gently prime me for the day ahead and keep me feeling organized and on top of things. And because it just becomes habitual day after day, doing the same things in the same order, it just shaves off a little bit of mental energy, which I think just really does help to keep stress at a minimum. So you can do this, a morning wake up routine, a workday startup routine like I just described. You can have an evening wind down routine, anywhere you think you can benefit from those routines. Another thing that I think is a good thing to make a part of your daily routine is just to get in little small breaks throughout the day. Now this can be really powerful for those of us that are just go from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed at night. And if you're at this point right now where you've got a job and you've got a side hustle and you've got kids and you are trying to balance it all and you're just probably going from one thing to the next with no breathing room, this can really just take the edge off just enough so that we can kind of keep ourselves going. Sometimes that's just as simple as 5 minutes of deep breathing by yourself. Lock yourself in the bathroom if you have to. This is a favorite trick of mine. Whatever you need to do, 5-minute, 10-minute walk, just something to break up those, that never ending list of tasks that you have to do, and just give yourself that just a couple of minutes even of just breathing room. Just a couple of minutes just for you, that no one else is asking anything of you. There's nothing to do. Just a couple minutes. Just building a few of those into your day, I think, can really make a huge, huge difference. So don't forget to make that a part of your routine. Get it in your calendar. What gets scheduled gets done, right? So get it in your calendar and follow through. All right, I hope that some of these tips that I've shared with you today can help you if you are in a similar place that I am right now, trying to get out of burnout, or if you ever suffer from burnout in the future, which obviously I hope you never do. Yeah, let me know what your biggest takeaways were down in the comments below. If you haven't already, be sure to download my free guide, 3 Steps to Publishing Your First Low Content Book in less than a day. I've left the link to that down in the description below as usual. You can also join my free Facebook group, Low Content Profits, also linked to down below. You can check out these videos next for some more on well-being. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. And again, don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.